How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about yet another statue of Abraham Lincoln being removed. Now, I feel like I've done quite a few of these videos over the past few days, weeks, and months, many more than I've ever done about the Confederate monuments being removed. Because if you know, like I know, it was never about the Confederate monuments. That whole issue was used as an avenue in to tear down whatever somebody may feel like is inappropriate or offensive or not woke enough. All right. Because it started with the Confederates, then it became George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and now we're at Abraham Lincoln. Where do we go from here? JFK, MLK, anybody and everyone that somebody does not like for whatever the reason may be. Okay. Now, the most recent issue happened in Boston and the city took it down officially. So it wasn't an Antifa thing or BLM going in, violently tearing it down. This was officially ordered by the city. Now, before I go any further, let's roll this local news clip. In this clip, you'll see the statue in question. You'll see where it is in the context. And you also hear from the guy that is responsible for the whole movement to take it down. After we get done watching that, I'll talk about what was said there. Then I'll give you my 2 cents, my deep, detailed analysis, and then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Have removed a controversial statue in Boston. It depicts President Lincoln standing over a newly freed slave. And calls to have it removed began this spring. WBZ's Louisa Muller joins us live from where the statue used to stand. Louisa?
Yeah, Nick, an empty platform now marks where the Emancipation statue stood for over a century. And for those who called for this, they used words today like celebration and funeral. Now, you can see the statue here on a flatbed before it was driven away this morning for storage. The sculpture, a replica of a statue in Washington, D.C., depicting a standing President Abraham Lincoln over a kneeling freed slave. And although at the time it was meant to represent newly emancipated people, the Boston Art Commission voted unanimously in June to remove it, finding that it still showed the black man as subservient. Local artist Tory Bullock spearheaded the movement with a petition that was signed by thousands. Today he came here to celebrate.
It's an amazing funeral. I'm here to provide a silent eulogy for this piece of artwork that's been here for 141 years. I am proud, I am black, I am young, and this image has been doing a lot of disservice to African Americans in Boston, and now it stops.
Now, the Boston Art Commission says the statue will remain in storage until it can, quote, be better interpreted. The plan is to put some new art here.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, are you surprised at all? I mean, I've done so many of these videos, you shouldn't be surprised. You should expect this kind of thing to happen by now. All right, I called it years ago. All right, people said, how are you going to defend the Confederacy, ABL? You're a coon, Uncle Tom, sellout. It's like, you don't even understand what you're saying here. You don't understand history, and you're just ignorant. And I think the guy that was in the video talking about, oh, it's a funeral, it's a great celebration, all this, that, and the third, is just an ignorant person. Let's talk about that statue right quick and what it really is. That's the Emancipation statue. There was one commissioned in D.C. by former slaves that still stands today. It represents their freedom, their emancipation, because they were able to rise from the chains. If you notice on the statue, the black man has chains that are broken on his wrists. He's able to rise from the chains and go from slavery to emancipation. Abraham Lincoln literally freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. So it just makes sense. He's responsible for their emancipation, for their freedom. So why not commission a statue to represent that? But now I guess that's not woke enough. That's not, appropriate. I was reading from this professor from Boston University that says that statue represents a black man being used as a prop to uplift a white savior. It's like, what? Former slaves commissioned the piece to represent their freedom and their emancipation, their removal from bondage. So why would you try to say that they didn't know what they were doing? How can you really say that? Is it even a black person saying that? Is it a descendant of those that commissioned the statue saying that? I don't think that it is. Okay. If it's one, it definitely ain't both. You understand what I'm saying? So the whole thing is ridiculous, but it's where we at nowadays. Okay. Because the statue, you don't like looking at it because you feel uncomfortable. You want to remove it. really, if you understood the history, then you wouldn't need to remove it. Boston says they're going to put it into a secure storage area, not a museum, because remember the whole thing was about, oh, put them in the museum, put them in the museum. A lot of these statues are being removed and just being thrown away. Might as well go to a landfill. If you're going to put it in a storage facility where nobody can see it at all, might as well throw it away. That's the eventual goal here. They're talking about the Confederate monuments to say, are we going to put them in a museum and give it proper context? That's what they said here. Or we're going to put it in a public place with proper context attributed to it. It's like, okay, it was already in a public place with context. There was an inscription on the base that says something like, we're rising from slavery, rising from bondage. It had the inscription on it. So if you wanted to add more context, just put another inscription, put a little plate on it with some more words. There was no need to remove it. See, the whole point behind the removal of the statue is to not have it be in sight, so you don't even know about it. So you become more ignorant. Okay. See, one thing to learn about certain things in school and books and whatnot. When you have artifacts and monuments and statues that are right there to, it gives you the visual so you can see what's going on for yourself. Right. So you can see what the intention of whoever built it was at that particular point in time, rather than trying to revise it, rather than trying to remove it and then replace it with whatever you want nowadays. That's what they do overseas when you have the Muslims come in and they conquer an area. They want to destroy all the artifacts, all the old statues, the churches or whatever. They want to convert. They want to rename, because if it was just about, giving it proper context, why must you remove anything? Why must you destroy anything? What's the point in doing that? You want to remove and you want to destroy because you want to change the way the history is remembered. You want to change the way people see a particular place. All right. So rather than having this flag up and that statue up and that particular person being honored or just being shown at all, you want to have your quote unquote hero shown. You want to have a statue of Breonna Taylor or George Floyd or somebody like that put in the place of Abraham Lincoln, like somehow they contributed to society in a positive way. All right. Abraham Lincoln literally got murdered during the war, because that's something that people don't talk about. He was murdered, I think, in April of 65, and the war was not over until like December of 65, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I know that when he was murdered, the war was still going on. And why was he murdered? I can only guess, maybe because he freed the slaves and brought the country back together. Maybe somebody didn't like that too much. The first Republican president on the abolitionist movement. I mean, you put two and two together, okay? The Republican Party was founded in 1854 with freeing the slaves as their primary objective. And then the first president, Abe Lincoln, was able to do that in a very short period of time. People could say why he did it or whatever. It doesn't really matter. To just reduce him to being a white savior is just so stupid. A white savior, that's like, okay, you got somebody that just ran somebody's house, carjack a bunch of people, pistol whip little kid, he getting arrested, and then you got the lady coming out, oh, let him go, he didn't do anything wrong. That's a white savior, right? That's a savior in general. But this man was a president and he did something for his constituents. Like, how is that considered to be a white savior? It doesn't make any sense at all. But people are so ignorant and they're so triggered about little things that don't make a difference, then they're going to assign that to Abraham Lincoln. So I'm not surprised at all. I suspect you'll see Abraham Lincoln's statue possibly being desecrated right there in D.C. And that's going to be kind of a tall order. Don't go out there and do that, because the guards over there are A1 and this whole thing right here might be gone somewhere else. So don't do that. Just be cool. But I feel like that's the next thing. Anybody that is from a prior time that was not woke enough is got to get canceled. Okay, MLK is next on the chopping block for sure. JFK, anybody like that is next. Oh, he was a womanizer. He was a philanderer. He cheated on his wife, all this and that. That's going to be next. Okay, they tore up a statue of Breonna Taylor, or a bust of Breonna Taylor, and people are like, oh, how are they going to do this? It's like, nah, you started it. Like, it's going to be a chain reaction. Once you say it's okay to destroy certain statues or to remove them and take them out of here, then it's going to be a domino effect. And you might have your particular hero or deity be destroyed over there on the left. Okay, that's how this whole thing goes. So as I close, I want to say this. It's really stupid and ignorant to remove a statue of the man that freed the slaves, who literally got murdered for freeing the slaves. I mean, I'm not really sure how much more woke you could be in 1863 than to free the slaves and get killed for it, right? To stand out there and do a bold thing that nobody else wanted to do. Like, let's just not forget about how before Abraham Lincoln and before the war, there was no rush to end slavery. All right. The North had slaves all throughout the war. Yes, they did. Look it up yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Oh, they were the border states. They were still in the Union. Let's not even forget about that. Both sides of the war had slaves, the North and the South. If the North did not have slaves in the state, they still profited from slaves in the state. A lot of the northern states did not even allow fugitive slaves to be in their state, so you couldn't just escape to go up there. A lot of slaves had to go to Canada to get freedom. Let's not forget about that. Let's put things in proper context. Let's stop moving any kind of statues. Don't take anything down. Keep up Democrat, Republican, left, right, bad, good. Let's leave everything up so we can understand what history was all about. And so we're doomed to not repeat the bad parts, but also we can learn from the positive parts and keep those rather than kind of spinning our wheels and not going forward in a positive way like we're kind of doing right now in society. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that it's a good thing to remove the statue of Abraham Lincoln because it represents a black prop being used as a way to uplift a white savior? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. Or is it a bad thing because freed slaves designed and commissioned the original one in DC that they tried to remove earlier this year? And you had to have black folks come from all over the country to fight against it. You had black folks who not even conservative, really just regular people coming out there to fight against the removal of this statue that was commissioned by freed slaves. And they're mostly fighting white liberals. So it was like, what are we doing here? Are we seeing kind of the old South resume, the old North and South resume, where you had the white liberal slave owner versus the people that were not in favor of slavery? How are you going to be against a statue of Abraham Lincoln? It all makes sense once you understand what the whole purpose of the Confederate statues was from the beginning. It was to get an avenue in. They're in there, and now they're wreaking havoc. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.